Hi everyone. Thanks for joining me today for this masterclass. I'm excited to share with you some frameworks that I've encountered throughout my career and learned from some of the mentorship programs I've been in. So I'll take a bit of time to introduce myself and walk you through some of my journey, and then we'll start going through some of the product management frameworks. I'm using product program management loosely here. Feel free to ask questions as and when in the chat. Leila will coordinate that, and then if there's anything that sort of comes up, there are points in the conversation where I would like to get your feedback. So I want to make this as interactive as possible. So that's the goal, to have an interactive discussion. But there are points in the presentation where we have some Q&A there. So very happy to be here. So thanks for having me. First and foremost, I need to give a disclaimer that these are my views and my experiences, not the experiences of my employer, Microsoft. So there's specific ways in which Microsoft does things, which varies depending on the organization you're in. This only refers to my experiences that I've gained throughout my career and through mentorship. So a bit about me. My name is Emmanuel, originally from Ghana, currently based in Atlanta, Georgia, working for Microsoft. But I started out as a biochem graduate who ended up realizing very quickly that biochemistry wasn't the path for him, and who decided that he wanted to try his hand at something more exciting. So once I did that, I decided to join the MEST program, and my career sort of went on a different trajectory from that point. So I joined the MEST program in 2009, ended in 2011. It was a 2-year program at the time, went through a lot of information around the software development lifecycle, building solutions, bed by butter, which was one of the highlights of the time, and has sort of built the bone of continuous discovery, which I'll describe here. Fortunately, I ended up starting a startup with my co-founders, Seta Kumeni, Isaac Maxey, and Ebenezer Nubuo, called ClaimSync. ClaimSync was later acquired by Yirenkyi. So ClaimSync was providing digitized health insurance solutions that help digitize health insurance claims and make them and reduce fraud by providing proof of presence and providing information around the time of arrival at the facility and ensuring that we reduce fraud as much as possible. We were acquired by Yirenkyi, a biometric solutions provider that we sought a partnership with, and I ended up joining them as a software engineer. So it was an acqui-hire. I worked at Yirenkyi for almost 2 years, and I was reached out to by M-Pharma to join them as a PM, which was an interesting proposition because it was sort of in line with some of the work I had done as a co-founder. So I was a PM for Bloom, which is the point of sale solution that M-Pharma provides to the facilities to help them track inventory, track sales, what Greg is currently calling the operating system of M-Pharma at the facility, which is awesome to see. After a couple of years, after 3 years at M-Pharma, I got an opportunity to join TransferWise, which is now Wise, as the PM for regional expansion for Middle East and Africa, which was an amazing opportunity. So things kept going well. So I ended up joining that team as the PM and launched several huge projects, such as sending money from UAE to anywhere in the world, making transfers to Ghana, eventually instant, making transfers to Tanzania, Uganda instant, and then also sending money from Turkey and to Turkey instant. So those are some of the things that I ended up doing at Wise during a very busy year, which also included the pandemic. After that year, Microsoft reached out And I thought it was an opportunity to always keep having even more impact. So I joined Microsoft and I'm working in the developer experience space, providing insights to developers to make them even more efficient than they are, and then also providing information around compliance. So that's a summary about me so that you understand who I am and then why I'm talking about the things I'm talking about. And this has been my journey so far. So I'll move on to the next point. So as you've seen in the previous slide, I had the opportunity to work at startups, at a scale up, which was Wise, and then also at a scaler, which is essentially a huge enterprise. So I've gotten all this experience, and I think I wanted to share some of the similarities, some of the differences, some of the things that sort of run across everywhere, and I'll share that with you as we go along. So when we think about the cycle of the product management phase, so there's different phases of the product development life cycle. So from the product point of view, there's discovery, there's strategy and planning, there's execution, there's launch, and there's growth and iteration. So these are some of the phases. So alongside those phases that a product sort of goes through, a company also goes through a set of phases. So for example, if you take a company like Microsoft that started from a garage, they grew to a certain point, and now essentially they're at an enterprise stroke harvest stroke reinvent phase where they are continuously reinventing themselves and building new solutions and experiences based off the things that they were able to do at the growth phase. Most of the EITs or entrepreneurs will find themselves at the startup phase. With this startup phase, it means you need to identify your core functionalities that you need to provide and provide those to your customers in as quickly as possible with as few resources as possible and to achieve product market fit. So that's the goal here. If some of you are in the growth phase, that's amazing. That means you've already identified your product market fit, and then you're essentially providing a unified approach. So looking for different verticals where you can keep investing in your product. So with all of this journey, I wanted to speak to what the role of the PM is. In summary, the role of the PM is to, first and foremost, drive innovation and ideation, making sure that ideas continuously flow within the organization, and this is it doesn't matter what irrespective. This is irrespective of what level or what size, what the size of organization, what the level of the PM is. These are the responsibilities: drive innovation, provide clarity, generate energy, drive alignment, and drive execution. So there's a lot of driving here. It means there's a lot of things that you need to do to lead from the front, sometimes lead from behind, and then providing ways to generate energy so that the whole team can continuously do these things. So I will be using the chat, and I'm looking forward to reading some of your responses. Feel free to share some of the skills that you feel are required to achieve these facets of this role. So we're talking about driving innovation, providing clarity, generating energy, driving execution. Okay, so I'm seeing great communication skills, so analytical soft skills, design thinking. That's awesome. That's a great one there. Those are some of the things that are required. So in order for these to be achieved, yes, there are some skills that are required. I keep saying the CEO of the product. In my experience, it's been how many years now? It's been close to 8 years. I've never been referred to the CEO as the CEO of any product. Typically, it's more as the servant, journalist, sweeper, willing to do anything for the product. So yeah, so more of the servant of the product. So yeah, that's the way I would phrase it. Exactly. Awesome. So yeah, so so some of the skills that are required. When I say skills, you've described the skills. What I'm referring to as skills are some of the outputs that come across. So all the answers in the chat were absolutely right. I think the word skills needs to be, I needed to have used a different word. So for example, when I speak to skills, being able to discover the products, consistency of discovering the product, defining a product vision, identifying key product metrics that are important to provide this, prioritization. It's super important because you're working with limited resources, execution, and then productivity. Those are the two other things that are sort of really key to drive all these different phases of the role. So my goal for this presentation is to sort of walk you through some of the similarities in different stages of companies and how all of these sort of play together. So when it comes to product discovery, it's key. If you haven't discovered a product, you can't even continue to execute. Unfortunately, that hasn't always been the case because we've seen people deliver products and then later try to find out who will use the product. That is, I'll say working in reverse. I wouldn't say working backwards because working backwards is something completely different. It's one of the frameworks I'll share with you. So working in reverse is not a great thing. It means you're eager to build something and you just want to build it. I tend to find that's very common with engineering focused product people or even engineers as a whole. They're eager to crack at a new technology. Maybe it's AI, maybe it's machine learning, maybe it's computer vision. So they'll figure out how to build a solution and then later go on to add this, find a customer for it. It's worked for some people, but then it doesn't always work all the time. So it's really understanding the customer needs, conducting research, gathering insights, and then defining the problem in a way that you are able to solve. So this brings me to the next question. What are some of the frameworks that are required for the skill of product discovery? So I know some of you are already product people, and I'm using the word product people very loosely here. Yes, it's the same as customer discovery, but it's a slightly bigger scope, Shenu. So name some of the frameworks that's for this skill. So we have, I'm giving you a couple of minutes to do that in the chat, if that helps you. Awesome. Awesome. Then it's good to see you. Yeah, it's good to see some people I know in the chat. Surveys, focus groups, all these things. So yeah, all these work great. So I will provide a couple, and then all the tools that you've listed are part of the things that we're talking about. So I'll start from the very top. It's important that we think about what the desired outcome is. So when we talk to customers, it's important that when we're carrying out these interviews, we're able to use an opportunity solution tree to sort of say, what is the desired outcome? So when I say outcome, it means once we're able to provide this product, what will I have achieved but first and foremost, what will the customer have achieved? What will the customer have benefited? And then once they've done that, what will I benefit? So it needs to be sort of a two-pronged approach. So that's going closer to product management. But then for product discovery, what's the desired outcome for the customer? Then whilst you are carrying out this interview, because you're working in the problem space, and I'd prefer to not use the word problem, but then the opportunity space. Essentially, what are the opportunities? So opportunities here mean needs, desires, and wishes. So those are the things. Using problem tends to put you into the solution space. So I advise you move away from using the word problem, because all of a sudden you start thinking about pain and also thinking about solutions as well. So what are the opportunities, pain points, and then desires for this desired outcome? As you do that, you start realizing that you typically have more than one opportunity available to you. And these opportunities lead to other opportunities. So for example, if I said I wanted to, my desired outcome was to be able to view Ghanaian movies or Ghanaian music videos from anywhere in the world. Let's take into context that YouTube, or I think it's WeFlix, or already exists. So the question would be, from the problem point of view, from the opportunity point of view, the question is, what are the opportunities that exist there? The opportunities that exist there would probably be opportunity one, watch videos. Watch videos, when would you want to watch the videos? In real time, would you want to be stored? What would you want the video to provide? What other opportunities exist? What kind of videos? Are we really only working with Ghanaian videos or African videos? So once you start thinking in terms of this opportunity solution tree, you start thinking about what the opportunity layer looks like. And you do this with your team to sort of get a collaboration process. And then once you've done that, you pick on one of the solutions and then decide on a set of experiments that you would like to carry out for these. So that's the opportunity solution tree. Then, very closely related to the opportunity solution tree, we have, when we build products, we make so many assumptions. And it's really important that we map those assumptions, because in terms of what do we really know, what is important, and there's always some sort of Eisenhower matrix. These matrices are always valuable. So what is important and unimportant, what is known and unknown. When you have your set of assumptions, think through it. Everything that we do that doesn't have data associated to it, even when it does, the question is, it's an assumption. How can you make your assumption less of an assumption? Sounds like a mouthful, but it isn't. By providing data around it and then mapping it out. So one thing I've learned across my career is visualizing things makes things easy to communicate, easy to collaborate, and then doing this. So this is another tool, that framework, that would really help to provide guidance to your team. As you go along this presentation, you'll realize that I will keep talking about mitigating risks, because again, we're a startup, we have a startup, scale up, even enterprise. We have limited time, limited money, limited developer capacity. So as product people, we need to ensure that we're using all these three resources as much to the best of their ability. So we need to reduce assumptions. So for example, if the CEO wakes up today and says, of your company says, we need to do this, it's an assumption. How can we reduce the risk of us spending 6 months building this solution and then later realizing that it's not the solution the customer wants? So map the assumptions. Once you have your assumptions mapped, you have your opportunity solution tree worked out, you're working on a specific solution, then the question becomes, how can you map the customer's journey? As they're using your tool, what emotional roller coaster are you putting them through? Hopefully it's a good one. How are they feeling? How are you analyzing their pain points? How are you using those pain points to provide, how are you seeing those pain points as opportunities to solve a problem? Because once you map it out, again, you're then able to see where the largest pain is and then where all this pain will, how much the customer would probably be willing to pay for the pain. So these are all things that once you map out would help you. And I love customer journey maps because they help me understand what's happening at each point. And these are the same tools that I end up using to provide user stories that feed down into the main thing. Now, even before you carry out the user journey map, you probably should have done a user persona. Visualizing things makes things easy for you. So creating a user persona makes sure that we're always talking. So if the user persona is the patient, or even no, let me say the old patient or aged patient, aged patients. Once you've defined what the user persona sort of looks like, then what this gives you is an opportunity to say, we're dealing with an aged patient instead of an infant patient. What are the qualities of the aged patient? What are the fears of the aged patient? What are the tasks that are required? Because the tasks required for an aged patient will be different from the tasks required for an infant patient. Because an infant patient might not even interact with our solution, as opposed to a mature aged patient. So creating these different personas of fictional representations of our target user provides clarity across the team. So, I have another follow-up question in the quiz. Which of the target frameworks that we discussed, so customer journey, user personas, customer journey, assumption mapping, and then opportunity solution tree, are used in startups, scale-ups, and enterprise? Any takers? Okay, seeing customer journey and user. Okay, there's a raised hand. Awesome. So I think that's also another way to look at it. So if Leila, would you be willing to unmute anyone? Or can I do that?
Sure, happy to assist.
Awesome.
Do we have any raised hands here?
I thought we did, so we didn't. How do I unmute?
Okay, Kobe has his hands up, so
great.
Yeah, Kobe, please unmute and go ahead.
Yeah, I think can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think all the tools you discuss will be very useful in all the setups from startup, because to be able to prove that whatever the CEO or assumption that we are trying to solve, we need to have that in-depth understanding and make sure we are actually spending our time building something that is providing value to our target audience. So I feel all the three that you discussed will be very useful.
Okay, thanks, Kobe. Good to hear from you. And Nina, did Nina raise her hand? Oh, it's Elliot.
I see Elliot.
I think it's Elliot, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Elliot Kobe.
Elliot Kobe, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think my hand was still up, so I just dropped it after talking.
Cool. Yeah, I think you're all right. So I'm seeing a lot of answers in the chat. So yes, all of them are used. Nina, sorry you can't find your mic. So Isaac, you're right. I think all of you sort of said it. All of them are used. There is the thing about the problem space is a problem is always a problem. It doesn't matter what size of company you are at or what stage you are at. It's still a problem that needs to be defined and worked with customers. So I'm still doing the same things, working with different customers and figuring some of these things out. So now that we've figured out, ideally, we've sort of figured out the problem space. Hopefully, we've done our problem discovery. Before I end my sentence here, I want to say that the product discovery process is a continuous process. It really never ends. And we should aim at, so I recently read a book, it's later down the line, so Continuous Discovery Habits. I recommend everyone here reads it. The fact that we need to have our OSTs, our customer journey maps, assumption mapping. We need to keep doing these, and our user personas, we need to update those regularly. So we need to have sort of like a weekly or bi-weekly cadence where we talk to our customers and understand their problems, because their problems change. And in the past, what we've done is we've ended up we're doing interviews now, we're going to build. By the time we get back to that cycle, the cycle might be broken, or we might by another competitor, possibly, or it's possible that the needs have changed. So you need to have your hand on the pulse and almost always be engaging with the stakeholder. And here, when I'm using stakeholder, I mean not just your customer. I'm also referring to your team, and then also your investors, your management, your board, whoever that may be. So yeah, so stakeholder engagement. So it's crucial. I think it's really important that our stakeholders know what's happening and understand what's happening. So we need to sort of engage with all of them at different stages. And in order to do that, we need to understand their needs, build the relationships of trust, and all these different things. No questions here. So if the first step to do that is to have a stakeholder map. So map out your stakeholders. First and foremost, understanding their interests in the product or in your product area, and then their degree of influence. So if you were thinking about, let's say, an investor, what doors can your investor open to make this happen for you? Understand this, and then understand whether you need to keep them informed, actively engaged, or satisfied. All of this is to ensure strategic alignment, so drive alignment, which is one of the facets of the role, which I described above. So this map is like step one after you've done your customer journey mapping and all the product discovery work. You need to know who your stakeholders are, who you need to keep, what influence they have, what's their availability, and then do that. Now that you know who they are, it's important that you have a plan to communicate with them. These are things that I learned along the way, that sometimes we're very casual about our approach, about, yeah, we let you know. We need to be very intentional about, after we've identified them, we need to have a plan of, I'm sending a release note that communicates to the stakeholders in the team or in the audience. I'm also sending an email to my boss to let them know that we're doing this. There's also potentially other partners that you're working with. So have a stakeholder engagement plan, create it, and then have sort of a timeline associated with this. Include frequency of communication and then the channel of communication. So that if you're communicating with, let's say, someone on a specific channel and you escalate, they understand that there's urgency associated with it. So if you're always using Slack, or no, actually Teams, if you're always using Teams, then, and for some reason you start using, sending an email and CC all these, then you'll be able to get them. Yes, Jonas, I'll make the slides available. Then one of the other tools that you can use is a matrix. So this is within your team, who is responsible, or actually no, within your team and the stakeholders that are building the solution. Who's responsible for this? Who's accountable for this? Who needs to be consulted? Who's sort of like a sponsor for the program or products you're building? Who needs to be constantly informed? And once it's this together with the engagement plan will work together to let you know who is important to keep updated, because information is key. I know that this might, and I'm sort of giving the hints, this might not be the case in startups where you're essentially sitting across your co-founder. But as the company grows, you realize that there will be information silos, and you need to not contribute to increasing these information silos, but rather help to break them down. So that's some of the work that you're doing by doing stakeholder engagements. As part of this, I wanted to speak to having a growth mindset. The CEO of Microsoft wrote a book about use growth mindset, which really talks about embracing mistakes, having a mindset that I don't know everything and the feedback of my stakeholders is valuable. So informing them about where you're at gives them an opportunity to communicate with you about some of the ideas, and showing them some of these artifacts that we've already spoken about and some that are already coming up will help you communicate in a visual manner so that people can understand. There's one of the frameworks for that I'll talk about that is quite verbose in terms of words, but it's a useful tool for a different reason. Visual communication where someone can see and understand at a glance is really important. And I think you should probably always communicate that. And it's important to understand that we're always learning. I've learned so much. I think I've learned more in the last 3 months than I learned in the first year of my time at Microsoft. And it's always about continuously learning. It never really stops. So, and there's always something to learn and always do. So this brings me to continuous discovery habits. Delivery is like later. So continuous discovery habits. So this is essentially where you're continuously doing iterative exploration. We've sort of worked with the Agile Scrum methodology where every time we're talking about building solutions, we're doing it iteratively. However, when it comes to continuous discovery, talking to our customers, we do that as a block, build, and then release, and then hope that the customer would use it. So build that relationship with your customer where you're continuously discovering with them. So if it means every sprint, you're showing them, even if it's a little button, we've done this button, now it works. What's the next thing? Yeah, we've been talking to you about, so this is the customer. The customer will probably tell you, we've been talking to you about adding this huge feature that you've not been able to do. So why are you showing me the button? Don't worry about it. It's just to keep them engaged and know what you're up to so that they understand what your priorities are, and use the visual tools to communicate. So if you have a roadmap, use that to say, yeah, we're working on this. We will work on this when we can, which is clearly stated. No, don't just say when we can. And that's a good one. I strongly recommend reading the book by Teresa Torres around continuous delivery habits. It's been really good for me. She has a video on YouTube. I strongly recommend adding it. I'll add the links. I'll add the links when I can. Sorry about the feedback. I see Sandra's raised hand. Happy to take questions in between. Yes, Sandra, go ahead. Okay. Okay, I think it's, yeah.
Let me unmute Sandra. Please give me a second. I see Elizabeth with her hand raised. Is that the same as Sandra?
No, I think it's.
Okay, let's give Elizabeth a chance to speak. And then maybe Sandra can also raise her hand. Elizabeth, kindly unmute and go ahead.
Emmanuel, mine is just a clarification. Can you just repeat the book you've mentioned?
Yeah, so the book is called Continuous Discovery Habits. It's the book that's right here. I will send a link. I'll add it to the references, and then I'll share it and make it available to you.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Okay, so I'll just continue. So, yeah, I'll skip the survey. I was planning on adding a survey to get some input from you, so I'll skip that. I'll probably send that to Leila to send your way. We are at this point. I'd like to pause just in the middle, and we're halfway there. Do we have any questions, thoughts? I think this would be a good time to sort of have them. Elizabeth, I think your hand is still up. Is that on purpose? I think.
Yeah, I think we have Nina now. Nina wants to talk. So Nina, please unmute and go ahead with the question. Hi, Nina, can you hear us? Okay, I think we can go ahead.
Okay. So Benjamin.
Yeah, Benjamin wants to speak.
Hey, man. Long time.
Okay. Hi, Ben.
Hey,
Please go ahead.
Emmanuel. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me now? Oh, well, never mind. Let it go.
Okay. Yeah, Emmanuel, you mentioned continuous discovery. How do you manage, not getting too excited with the new feedback that you're getting from your users, right? Because I'm guessing once the sprint is in progress and people are focused on the first things you brought, and now that you've gone and discovered new things, you might be tempted as a PM to just, push that into a sprint or just add that to a backlog, as an upcoming thing to do. So how do you manage, not getting too very excited about some of the new things you find in your continuous discovery process?
Awesome. Yeah, great question. So my response to that is leverage your opportunity solution tree. Once you find a new opportunity during continuous discovery, feed it back into your opportunity solution tree and figure out where it fits in terms of your opportunities. Another way is, so where it fits into the opportunities, and then figure out how can you quickly experiment to solve this problem. Is there a way that you can, as a PM, build a solution, a wireframe that can test this opportunity without engineering efforts? So that's sort of the thing that I'm doing a lot more of lately. And I think that's the way to sort of ensure that you are not using engineering efforts. The other thing is to rely on your prioritization strategies. So we'll talk about some of those further down in the conversation.
Hello, I'm not sure if you can hear me now.
Yeah, Nina, I can hear you now. Cool.
Finally, I'm like, it's been a hustle. Okay, so my question that I have is about Agile.
Mm-hmm.
So I've noticed that a lot of time, company will use Agile in a very different way or loose way. And so my question to you is like, what is really Agile at Microsoft? Like, how do you utilize that method? And that's number one. And number two, do you really think that nowadays when it comes to software development, it's good to like mix both waterfall and Agile, or or do like most companies like so focus on like, let's do Agile because that's the new way of doing things?
Yeah. So answer your first question first. At Microsoft, we tend to use anything we can to make it work. So when I say that, as I'm speaking to you, my backlog is currently in a mixture between Kanban and Scrum. I can't tell you why, but it's really just what we're trying to do is not let the framework sort of, because that's all they are. These waterfall, Scrum, Agile, they're frameworks, they're tools to use. We're not trying to use those. We're not purists. We're not saying this is the pure way of doing things. So we're trying to use the tools to suit the best way to solve it. So let me give you a few examples. If we're building something that requires a lot of research, a lot of customer engagement, and it requires a lot of engineering effort, that requires a lot of integrations. It tends to lean more towards waterfall, but still with Agile. That's what I would say. When we have UX focused experiences, it's completely Agile. We're using Kanban completely. So I think my answer to you, Nina, is don't let the frameworks sort of bind you, put you in a corner. use the frameworks as and when you need them, and always think about what you need to achieve. Cool. I think that those are the questions we have. So
we have a few more in the chat.
In the chat.
So
okay.
yeah, Kojo Kese is asking, when you get stuck on a project, what do you do to get unstuck and get the team moving forward on the project goals?
Yeah, so great question. When you get stuck on a project, and I think as the PM, your job is to drive energy, and that's provide clarity, drive energy. So in order to do that, the first thing you need to ask is, are we solving a customer problem? Oh, again, back to your opportunity tree. Are we solving a customer problem? Does this have impact? If you're realizing that what you're building doesn't have impact, then that's why you tend to get stuck. I find that, and throughout my career, I found that engineers love to have their products used. And that no engineer, no matter how hard the problem is, if a customer will use it, an engineer will find a solution. And that's sort of what I think the energy is needed. So make sure you link it back to the problem. If it's not a problem that's solving a customer problem, an opportunity that's solving a customer problem, then you probably won't have the energy to continue. So I hope, Kojo, that answers your question.
There are two more interesting questions from me, Ade, and I think this is Sebastian. I don't know if you want us to take that now or later.
Yeah, let's do it. I think there's more to come.
Sure.
So I'll just take those ones quickly.
And then we move. Okay.
Yeah, and then we move.
So Niade wants to know if being an entrepreneur automatically makes you a product manager. And okay, let's take that. Then I'll read Sebastian's question too.
Sure. So the simple answer is no. I think the skills required, it's not the traits required. I think traits is the word. The traits that a PM tends to have is curiosity, empathy, and then also there's a bit of an ego thing about solving problems. It tends to happen, but then also it's really just about wanting to continuously solve problems and serve. I don't think every entrepreneur is a PM. I think some entrepreneurs stumble on the ideas because of their own experiences. So there's a different thing with trying to live the life of somebody else. So live in somebody else's shoes.
So last one from Sebastian, and then we move on. He wants to know, how does luck affect product design and development?
How does luck? Yeah, I mean, call it what you will. Call it luck, call it the universe, call it God, call it whatever you will. There is always an aspect of things, intoms for the Ghanaians in the chat. There's intoms. It happens. But there's something I learned very early as a football fan. So I'm a soccer fan. I'm a football fan. The audience, I'm a football fan. And there's something that Didier Drogba used to say, that he scored as many goals as he did because he found himself in the box at a particular point in time, so that when the chance came, he was there to score. So it's really all about, you might call it luck. I don't call it luck. I would call it positioning yourself at the right place at the right time and thinking about the right things at the right time. So whoever is thinking about microchips, like we saw with NVIDIA, they were thinking about microchips 20 years ago, maybe 10. Now their stock is going all the way up. Same thing with OpenAI. They were thinking about all these things a long time ago. So it's all about being at the right place at the right time, being ready for the opportunity. So thanks, Fleur, for saying that. So being ready for the opportunity. Cool. I think those are the questions we have. So I'll move on to the next section, which is product strategy and alignment. So you found your customer, you found their problem, you think you have a journey for them. Now, depending on the stage of the company or where you're at, you need to get everyone on board, because you need to get people to believe in your idea, to understand the problem, to join the boat with you. So that's it. So that's where it comes. So it's product strategy and alignment are essential for resource allocation, because let's say you found a new opportunity in a new market. You need to be able to come and say, I found a new opportunity, it's in this new market, I can get it done. And then it's also important to, because you want to be customer centric, and then make sure that at the end of the day, everything you're doing is related to the customer. So getting alignment across your team, within your team, and across your stakeholders. All of that can be added to the previous section around stakeholder engagement. So I will provide some of the frameworks. The simplest one, and this is one that I would love to get collaborative with. So if you have any product visions for your product, I would love to hear them, add them in the chat. But it's simple. For my product, my product is for this customer who is in need of this. My product is within this category. It doesn't need to be in a category. It's fine. It's a fintech, it's a health tech, it's an enterprise solution. The key benefits, why does this enable me to do this? And then what is your differentiation? This is a summary of your product vision. So and there are examples. So let's say my iPhone is for everyone who loves to use sleek communication products, right? The iPhone is a communication device that enables our customers to communicate with their family members and their friends, use apps to play games. It's unlike the Android phone, or at the time, unlike the Nokia, whatever it was. Our product is a technological advancement. Your product vision is there. So like I said, using the above structure, write in the chat a product vision for you and your startups. So you can, I'll keep going. We won't pause here, but I'll keep going, and then you can add them in the chat as we go along. So just to give you an example, for GitLab Runner is to offer DevOps teams with a build agent that works seamlessly on tomorrow's market-leading computing platforms, and the tools to eliminate CI, continuous integration, build fleet, operational complexity at enterprise scale. So that's one of them. This is a rather complex one because it's very detailed. It's not complex. It's detailed and very nuanced, but it's also to show you that this could be as specific as this is, or as generic as I said with the iPhone, or yeah. Another big tool that we're learning, and I'm trying to keep applying more and more, is the hero's journey. It's important that we remember that we're not the hero of the story. So PMs are not the hero. The product even is not the hero. The customer is a hero. So in doing that, you need to think about who is the story about. If it's the patients, if it's the, I don't know, the tax clerk, whoever that may be, the footballer, whatever that may be, they are the hero. What are their needs, pain points? You already have all of those from your user personas. Now they need to go across a threshold. Describe their story as something that they need to go through. Add a point of failure or a threshold where things go upside down for them. And then provide them with alternatives. How can they achieve this goal? And then show them the solution. The solution typically should be your product that provides this. And then they should take that, apply it, and then it should come back and say, how does this return to their goal? Because the goal is all the way up there. And once you finish, you wrap up with typically what would be a good story. So I'd really always think about the end from the beginning. When I say that, what I mean is it's similar to the working backwards strategy, which Jeff Bezos has pioneered. Once you have this, think about what does the end look like? How will this solve the customer's problem? And how will this make the customer's life better? We're very quick to think our product is a revolutionary AI product that does A, B, C, D, and no one knows how it affects the customer's life. So really focus on your customer. This is all part of customer centricity. I was speaking about the working backwards doc. This is a verbose way of going about it. It works very well in enterprise, for example, at Microsoft, Amazon, in different places. The reason it works is because there are so many stakeholders and everyone is not able to get the context from a presentation. So they want to get into the details that you're providing. So as your startup sort of grows, you will end up using this to communicate, because it's also a great way to think about the end from the beginning as well. So you come up with the problem statement, and that's the thing. All these things sort of feed into some of the other things that we've done. So if you're I've sort of set up this deck in a chronological order so that you can sort of work your way towards this point with all the details from all the way from the beginning. So I'll skip this because I think, I'll provide you guys with the answer. So the reason startups don't use working backwards documents, it's not because they don't like to read. It's not because they don't like to write. It's just because by the time you're done writing these documents, which can take you a couple of days, your problem may have already changed. And once your problem has changed, it makes it more difficult for you to keep abreast with things. So you need to move faster and get this done. So I think one of the recommendations, it's great to have, but then you need to move faster than the working backwards. So unless you're working in enterprise. So this helps if you're writing a press release. So think of this as essentially a press release. So if you're launching a product, writing a blog post about it, this is essentially what you need to write in your docs and then add everything to it. So yeah, one of the other frameworks that we work with to communicate alignment is the OKR framework. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this OKR framework, which was pioneered by John Doerr and then used by Google. The OKR framework provides you with clarity. I think one of the things in terms of clarity and then accountability. So those are the two main things that I see. There's alignment, of course, but then clarity and accountability. So what tends to happen is the objective is, again, it's similar to the outcome. What should happen by the time we're done with all this? And then your job is to come up with the key results. So I just did this over the last few weeks during planning. So come up with the key results. Are there steps that are measurable that we can use to say we've achieved X% of the problem? We've solved another X% of the problem, because your objectives will typically stay the same. But how do we know you've solved part of the problem? Because it's very unlikely that you will build one solution that solves the entire problem. So think in terms of, if I have, going back to, I think it was Nina's conversation about Scrum and Agile. If I have 10 sprints, what should I have achieved by the end of the 10 sprints? And how do the 10 sprints sort of add up to this if you're working in waterfall? But then if you have your key results, it's essentially, I can do 2% of this in sprint 1, another 5 in sprint 2, another 10% in sprint 3, all to achieve this key result. So that's the way we think about it. Now that you have your key results and your working backwards doc, you have alignment achieved with all your stakeholders. It's important that you prioritize the work, because ideally you'd use the customer journey to create your backlog. You would use, but before you do that, you need to have the prioritization in terms of what needs to come before the other thing. Because you have, like I said before, you have limited resources. So it's important to remember we have limited resources, time, money. So we need to optimize resources, 100%. Like, there's no, throughout my career, there's nowhere where we've not had to do prioritization. It's always one thing over the other. And it's really, it's for a PM, I feel like this is skill zero. You need to know this. You need to have a way to prioritize, because there will be, all your stakeholders that you're engaging with will engage with you, and they will always come up with different things that they want from you. So your job is to figure out a way to know which problem to address first and why. So I think everyone has used this, the Eisenhower matrix. So President Eisenhower, I don't know what year he was served as president, but then it's essentially saying he has two kinds of governments. Jay-Z had 99, he said he had two. Impact versus urgency. So it's really just about understanding what is higher priority, what's lower priority, and then mapping those out so that you can have a clear idea of what should you do first. Essentially, if there's something that's high priority, so the quadrants you should attack first is high priority and high urgency. That's how you'd probably address it. There's also another matrix, which is impact versus effort. For PMs, I would advise that you don't think of problems in terms of effort till you're sitting with your engineering manager, because it's your engineering or your CTO or whoever that may be. Until it's the CTO's job to figure out effort. Your job is to think in terms of customer problems. So this is how you should be thinking. Impact versus effort sort of skews your thinking to things that are hard to do and makes it easy for you to stay away from difficult problems to solve, but which might actually be the biggest pain. So that's one of the matrices. There's the RICE matrix, which is reach, impact, confidence, efforts. So this is a slightly more mathematical way of calculating, of determining priority. So essentially, once you have, so there at this point, you're also thinking about not just the solution space, because you're thinking about reach. Reach is how many customers will be impacted. Then you're estimating the impact in terms of, okay, this is massive or it's great, and then there's also a metric around how confident are you about this metric, going back to the assumptions. So if you're able to have the assumptions, you have a sense of confidence. And then efforts in terms of how much effort is required to complete this. Yeah. So I recommend you do this after you've done the Eisenhower matrix, because essentially at this point, you're already thinking about dev weeks, dev months, and what this looks like. Then another, and that's it. You can, my goal is to provide you with the frameworks that are useful or have been useful to me, so that you can pick and choose like a cocktail of the different things that you want. So this is another one, the Moscow method. So must have, should have, could have, won't have. This is great for communicating, especially what you won't have. In terms of, yeah, there's no way we're doing this because it's not important and it will be left out. And it's great for also communicating what we should have, what we must have. So then it creates clarity around that. So once you have that, there's things that people will probably not bring up again because they know that they're in the won't have category. And things that in the could have, should have, it's essentially things that we're saying not right now. That's how you should think about it. And yeah. So I wanted to, so I know we've been executing. So I kind of know that I'm speaking to MEST EITs, MEST alums, I'm speaking to people in the MEST community, and execution is your bread and butter. So I didn't feel like it would be of service to provide you with all the Agile Scrum methodologies, Prince 2, all these things. I feel like working in the problem, in the solution or opportunity space is where we can sort of have as much impact as possible. Execution, the thing I've realized is it's when it comes to execution, I have seen people execute with wireframes and execute better than people who've built, like we used to say at MEST, from scratch. I find it, at the end of the day, if you're customer focused, it's really important that we think a lot more about the problem and solution space. And I think that's what I'm trying to communicate here. But that being said, there's an aspect that I realized that we were not great at, which is once we launch, our products tend to not be as ready as we would prefer them to be. And that's typically because we're still a startup, it's just the three of us, or we're just a team, it's a capstone. We don't have a readiness checklist. So we don't have a sense of what works, what doesn't work. And we find these things out when we go to the customer or when we're doing the demos, and then we leave it to the demo gods and then expect them to be kind to us, but typically they're not. So that's why it's important to have a readiness checklist. This readiness checklist is something I learned at Wise that sort of goes like, how ready are we to go out? Because again, at Wise, one of the things was this had to do with money. So we can't be ready until the checklist is ready. And that's one of the things that I love about this work, because once it's ready, and then you sort of feel at ease because you know all the features have been validated either by yourself, your ops team, or even your QA if you have one. If you don't have QA, unfortunately, like I said, as a 7th PM or CEO of the product, going back to whoever said that, it's your job to sort of do it, because you can't expect the engineers to test the code they've written or the experience they've written. So it's your job to do it. And drilling down to productivity, I wanted to provide a few nuggets around how you can have personal productivity and then team productivity. So with the personal productivity, it's just one, I think. One of the tools is the 4Ds, so of time management. And believe me, I'm still battling with some of these things because it depends on my mood, it depends on what's happening in my life. But then this is an easy way to, you can use, again, the 4 matrix and then figure out what you need to do, what you need to defer, what you need to delegate, and then what you need to drop. Your time so the thing about PMs is that there's a reason why PMs are sought after. It's a sought after career, and people are looking for PMs. PMs can be great accelerators, and they can provide immense value without any engineering efforts. So it's really important that you manage your time and optimize it so that you're able to provide as much value to the team, if that means doing things that will support the team that require no engineering effort. So it's really important to maximize your time. For the team, we all know about the Agile ceremonies. Again, I didn't want to go into this, and I won't go into the specifics of this because we all know them. I recommend we do them depending on what we're doing. But yeah. The only thing I will add about this is we need to think about async. We're in a remote world, hybrid world. We're working across the world. I have engineers in Asia, engineers still in the US, engineers in Brazil, engineers in Europe. It's important that we add a structure that has both async and in-person meetings. Async because it's important because we know we have team members who will not say anything unless it's in a meeting in person. They would probably prefer to type these out. So we need to accommodate for all these and ensure that we're getting the most out of our team. Again, general guidance, start with icebreakers. Check in with the team. We're human, we're people. So check in with the team. Have empathy with your engineers in terms of how you expect a lot from them. So get to know them, have empathy. When you're setting up ceremonies, have an agenda, take notes, switch to async, and be respectful of people's time. I think that's another one of the lessons. I hope I am being right now. Yeah. And this is my last quiz question. Feel free to add it in the chat. I wish I had set up the quiz. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you so much. This has been insightful. We have a number of questions in the chat board. If you have any question, please put up your hand, but let's quickly take the questions in the chat. There was a question from Elizabeth. She wants to know what the emerging trends or technologies in product development are that companies should be aware of.
Yeah, emerging trends. So I think this is because I'm in the space. I think, of course, AI, we're investing heavily in AI, and I'm saying we like Anna. So I am investing heavily in AI and learning a lot about it. Another thing that is interesting is developer efficiency, developer experience. And as AI is springing up, there's prompt engineering, which is another thing. So the output that someone who really knows how to use these tools, for example, some of the images that I created, so this image was generated by AI DALL-E. So, which is an African man with breaking ice. So the output that you get from these tools will be different from someone who's really skilled at getting this. So it's really important to learn how to use these different tools. The way I think about them is I don't expect my kids to code the way we're coding today. And we need to think about how we can build that world. So that's what that's the emerging trend I have, and improve developer experience. So that's the world I'm living in. Yeah.
Great. Sigurd wants to know how you go about product launch strategy. Sounds like a question that needs a lengthy answer, but maybe we can make it quick and then we move on to the other questions.
Yeah, so it's really down to, so a product manager doesn't work alone. He's a team player. So working with the marketing team, and I'm saying that assuming that you have that. If you don't have that, that's fine. Then you need to put on your marketer's hat and then think from that point of view, but essentially what I'm saying is the checklist is helpful. Another strategy is to think really carefully about the channels and the audience that you're thinking about. And I think that's in the engagement. So you can essentially use the stakeholder engagement plan and think about how all of those can be skewed. So again, use that tool to suit your launch, and then have the checklist. And then think about the content that you need to create to feed or to satisfy the specific audience. And once you have that, you should be fine. I think stakeholder engagement strategy, tweak that slightly for launch, and then use the launch readiness checklist.
Cool. We have FJ Carver who wants to know, okay, he says, give us some insights around how to manage product versioning.
Yeah, so for product versioning, so there's multiple ways. So there's different schools of thoughts around semantic versioning, which means a major version should be 0.1, minor version should be 0.0, point dot as in to the second 0.01. So if it's 1.01, all these things, they're helpful, but then, so I would use semantic versioning. I think that helps from the start to sort of provide some structure. There's copy. My simple answer is copy. Look at what Plaid has done. Look at what Twilio has done. Look at what Wise has done. Look at what GitHub is doing. It's good to look at how everyone else is doing it and spend your energy in the customer. So I find that spending the time in the customer section is more important than the versioning. Yeah. But that being said, copy and just get that done.
Great. Shagun again wants to know, how do you build a portfolio? Hi, Shagun. We are really enjoying your questions. How do you build a portfolio as a new PM?
Yeah, as a new PM, first and foremost, start today. That's how you need to start today. Second thing, once you get started, think about these different aspects and how you can, if you're working in a startup, how can you show that you have these skills? So how can you show that, let me go all the way back. How can you show that you drive innovation and ideation? How can you show this? How can you show that you provided clarity? How can you show that you generated energy? So if there's any ways in which of driven execution, there's certifications that you can learn to do that. I've found, and that's been my experience, there's no substitute for practice and living on living on the edge and learning as you go. Because like, as you do that, you learn, and that's part of what Satya keeps talking about. There's so much that we learn by doing, and that's what, in the morning we freak out. By the end of the day, we're like, "Whew, we did this." So, yeah, my recommendation is just get your hands dirty and get it done. Yeah, and think about the artifacts that are the results of these things, and then once you have an opportunity to join a team as a PM, you don't need to show them some of the work you've done. If you've done it well enough, you'll be able to speak and they will understand that you can do this. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. To Shagun and everyone else on the call, for entrepreneurs or founders, for product managers, everyone in the product space and business space who's looking to really understand, the value of product managers, how to hire them, what strategic value do they bring to the company or your organization, your startup. We are going to have another PM-focused webinar with Ghana Sham of Edla Hub. This will be on the 30th of June, so please do register. The link is here. I've also dropped it on the chat board, so please use that and join us. Just wanted to quickly mention that at the back of your question. But thank you so much, Emmanuel. This has been amazing. I think I've gone through all the questions, but of course, if there are any more, please put up your hand and let's give you the space to talk. We can spare another 5 minutes. And then we also have another webinar series we've been doing with Deloitte on, financial management, risk management for SMEs, for startups. The next series, we will be talking about keeping good financial records with the Deloitte team. So please do join us on 6th July at 2 p.m. and let's have this very, very interactive conversation. I'll just stop my screen here and just get back to you, Emmanuel, and the rest of the team. Yeah. Any more questions? Let's check that out in the chat. Okay, we have Elisa. Okay, there's a very long question here. Hold on. Actually, quite a number of questions. From Kojo. Kojo says, what open source projects allow one to develop PM skills? How do you build an online portfolio that showcases these skills? We'll take the questions in the Q&A box and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, open source projects that lets you learn about PM skills. I haven't come across one. I think there's so much content out there to learn about how to be a PM or how to be a good PM. To be honest, that one of the best resources that I've always leveraged is YouTube. So just figure out what you share, what you learn there. I don't know if that counts. I guess for the free version, you can count that. But yeah, I don't have any other that sort of comes to mind. And then I think to build a portfolio, like I said before, yeah, get your hands dirty and pick product discovery, pick the different frameworks, implement it how it applies to your product or your problem. So your problem actually, no problem. And then, yeah, work your way down from there and keep records of everything. As you're doing that, you're building your muscles. It's like you're getting ready for it.
Okay, Nina has a question on project management or product management. Which one is easier to go? It says, do you think it's easier to go from project management to product management or the other way around?
So a product, so it depends on your product and it depends on the immediate need. So if you are, I think project management is a skill anyone should. It's like finance. That's the way I think about project management. It's really just about managing yourself, managing your resources, and then making sure you're delivering on time. So if you think of yourself as a project, it's always great to have project management skills in terms of how you're managing yourself. I find that product is slightly different in terms of once you have the project management skills, are you curious? Are you building relationships? Are you driving alignment? Are you driving energy? Those are things that require you to have traits of empathy, high energy, curiosity. Those are slightly different. If you have the skill, the curiosity will build into data analysis and other things that will provide the metrics. So those are slightly different in my point of view when it comes to project and product. So I think project builds, it's a requirement for product. That means that I'm not asking you to get a project management certification. I'm just saying, know how to manage a project, and a project can be anything, yourself, anything.
Next one is from Ian. Ian for short, because I'm trying not to murder your name. He says, please advise how to manage working with erratic founders.
Yeah, Ian Olua. So I got it. I think I got it right. There's more to it, but I think Olua Femi, I hope. Let's see. So Ian, to answer your question, the erratic, when you're dealing with erratic, you need to provide them. So it's part of the stakeholder engagement. If you've done your job right and you're communicating really clearly about how you are there to help them and to help them achieve a goal, then they will feel more at ease. I think being erratic tends to feed out of anxiety, fears, and also, yeah, that's where it tends to feed out of. So I think it's really important that you try to allay their fears by providing them with information that will help them to become less erratic, I guess. So if it means you carry out customer interviews, share with them, provide all of this, those are the different things that you need to do. Use the frameworks that I've shared, share information with them, and keep them up to date.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Hi, Elisa. There are two questions from Elisa. We'll tackle the first one first. She says, as an EIT and for all others on the call, EITs are entrepreneurs in training at MEST. What is the most important thing for me to take into account as a product manager when building my MVP?
Yeah. So when building your MVP, I would say the most important thing is how much have you validated your assumptions? What can you do to ensure that when the MVP is ready, it's used by the customer and that you're not wasting resources? When I say resources, time, money, dev hours. So that I would say is the most important. So validating the problem as much as possible, even if it means living with your customer, if you can do that. So figure out a way to sort of be with them as much as possible. That's the most important.
Oh, the last question, and then we'll wrap up the day, from Obli Boche. I hope I got that right. Or Bochwe. Sorry if I murdered it. What are your thoughts on building tools for your function as a startup? Sorry, what are your thoughts on building tools for your function as a startup and then offering this to customers in the future? Then he puts into bracket, considering that the same problem you are trying to solve internally may be useful for customers externally.
Yeah.
Is that a good way for finding product market fit?
So yes. Yes, that's a good way to find product market fit. As we're living our lives, we're facing problems, and these are problems that we encounter. So these are problems we know for us. I think the answer is yes, but with the caveats. The caveat is when building the product for this function, it needs to be well researched to make sure that the function that you are performing is equivalent to the function that's being performed in another organization. When I say this is what I mean. Even within Microsoft, the PM who I work the closest with does something completely different from what I do. And there's probably like, I don't know, maybe thousands of PMs. So think about if you are building a solution, I'm using PMs as an example. If you're building a solution for PMs and you're building it based off your life, it could be either slightly or very different. So you need to figure out how to, again, validate those assumptions to make sure that as you're building your solution, it's able to handle those edge cases and various scenarios. So yeah.
Super. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. It's been an hour and a half. Cool. I mean, you basically put together over a decade's worth of experience in product management, from startups to scale-ups to enterprise-sized organizations like Microsoft together into this amazing presentation, and we are so grateful. The feedback is obvious. Everyone is really, really grateful for the insights, and I think this has also been very practical with the models that we have seen. And to everyone, yes, we will be sharing the resources and the links, the books and videos that Emmanuel has spoken about. So just be on the lookout for our email in your inbox sometime next week. The full recording will also be on YouTube for you to rewatch and remind yourselves of the practice and lessons. Emmanuel is also on LinkedIn, so do slide into that DM and bug him with some more questions, especially if you're a MEST. I should say that Emmanuel was also part of our SAGE program, which is an initiative that we are running for all alumni or portfolio companies or EITs who want to book free consultation sessions with Emmanuel. If you are a MEST on the call and you want to do this with us, please hit us up at community@mailswater.org. Once you have done your consultations with us for free, you also get a platform to do your masterclass like Emmanuel has done here. So we look forward to those emails and the interest in the SAGE program. Thank you all so much for your time. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for your time and your dedication all these months and all these years to the community. God bless you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Click the links and join our next webinars. You will definitely have a very good time. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.